Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry, a high school history teacher, and welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. All right, today I've got something a little bit different today, but actually something I'm really interested in looking at, and I hope you will be too. So this is a popular video that has 2.5 million views on it, and it's from a channel called David Hoffman. But what has got me interested in here is this is supposed to be a debate between Vietnam War veterans debating about the war, and it's in 1968. Now, if you know about the Vietnam War, the effect of it on the United States, it drastically changed public opinion about war. And in this video, I'm going to try to sprinkle in some of the effects, like from an educator's standpoint, when we talk about Vietnam War and the effects of it. I'm going to try to, again, sprinkle that in a little bit. But let's go ahead and look at what these people are saying. I'm assuming we're going to have some veterans that say, you know, this war was good to be involved with, or of course it was not good to be involved with. But of course, you know, these are the types of things we should look at when we really want to get a true sense of things just in history in general, is listen to the people that were involved and were there and try to listen to all different perspectives. Definitely share your thoughts down below. Anyway, the original video link is going to be down below, so you check that out. Okay, and let's check this out. All right, here we go.
Hey, Jack, you were there.
You know what, let me put on captions if that will work, in case it's hard to hear.
You got wounded 3 times, twice, or whatever it was.
So many
Last time
people
I
had
got hit, I
injuries.
got hit in the head. We had a 57 killed and 140 wounded, and like my whole platoon was completely wiped out except for about 3 or 4 guys, you know. And it's like, it's really strange. I went down to Indiana for my buddy's funeral, you know, because he was a real good friend of mine, and it's really to see it, you know, what the people really go through, when their son gets killed, especially a favorite son. Like, he was the only son in the family.
You know, I went to a war. I didn't get killed.
So, I mean, that first guy, maybe we'll stop after everybody's been able to share their points there. So, you know, like he said, what, 57 people with him died, and he's the only one that survived from his troop or whatever. Just like you can understand, the big thing that gets talked about with veterans, of course, is their mental health after the war. So many people come back from war completely unable to function anymore. Some people are able to go on with their lives. Kind of just depends on the person. That guy, I mean, at least he looked stable enough. He could talk with that, but so many people, veterans, did not. All right, what's this guy saying?
Like, he was the only son in the family.
I'd be interested to see too. I think something else we should keep an eye on is age of them. You know what I mean? And how opinions might be different depending on the age of the soldier.
You know, I went to a war. I didn't get killed. I'm back here. He was in a war. He didn't get killed.
Yeah, for what? For what?
I know what point that's supposed to make.
Where's all the answers? Where's all the answers?
Communism should be stopped somewhere, and it might as well be in Vietnam, because first thing you know, communist China would love to get down into the Pacific. They don't have enough room for their people as it is, and they would just take over everything if they don't stop them in Asia.
I don't know.
So this goes back to an important, basically the military policy at the time, which was it's called Domino Theory, if you've heard of that or not. Domino Theory basically stated that, and it kind of builds upon containment theory. It's kind of in with that, because basically after World War II, you know, and the Soviet Union being successful at creating satellites and stuff, it became kind of just like an understanding and an acceptance, at least by the United States especially, that communism is going to exist where it exists. You're not going to get the Russians to go back on that, or shoot, even when China eventually does it, which wasn't too long after World War II, that they were going to do it. But like, if it was literally American policy that it wasn't going to, they were going to let it spread. Okay? If it was going to spread, then you intervene, say Korean War, right? How that goes there. Domino Theory specifically stated kind of what this woman was saying, which was this thought that if Vietnam becomes like communist, then like all of Southeast Asia will. Like all of Southeast Asia, maybe even creeping into like India. And for a lot of people, because as we know, in the 60s and things like that, we're still very much Cold War, and it's very much the Red Scare still. So anyway, I'm talking too much, but I wanted to clarify what Domino Theory was.
In every war that they say we fight to stop communism, it doesn't seem right, because after all, Russia hasn't lost a man. And look what we've lost.
Some of the boys
Yeah, that's an interesting argument. Again, it's like, because everyone puts it back to the Russians, like the Russians aren't fighting in Vietnam. They don't do that. That's why there was these conflicts, these proxy wars. They're like, well, the Russians aren't looking to die for it. They're like, why are we? What do you think about that?
Come back and they say, those people don't even want us there. So that makes you wonder, doesn't it?
A lot of them were glad we were there. A lot of them hated me. Most of them thought that if you were an American, you owed them something. And I think we do owe them something. We owe them the right to live.
So if they had their way, I think
That ended up being a very popular thing by a lot of soldiers that came home. It was like, why are we fighting? People didn't want us there. Like, I got all kinds of, especially if you were, attacked by like the Viet Cong, which were like communist sympathizers actually in southern Vietnam. It was like, hey, I just was dealing with these people in the daytime, and then at night they were attacking me. You know what I mean? So that, I think, deflated a lot of soldiers. Be very different if you were there and you were really welcomed by the majority heavily, that you were welcome there, seen as like liberators. You get indication from a lot of these soldiers that came back where they felt like that wasn't the case.
that a lot of those people are peasant people. They're ignorant. They're going to go the way that the country offers them the most.
Make an
So
argument that
perhaps they would go
Vietnamese are
communistic.
you dumb? Too dumb to realize Americans are
As
helping them?
Jake said, yes, it would be their choice, yes. But we're trying to save them from this.
The only people that would
Trying to
suffer
save them from themselves, basically. Interesting. Now, I'm assuming that woman didn't fight in the war. Do you think that makes a difference? How big of a difference do you think that makes in having valid opinions?
a bloodbath would be Tu and Key and all these people like that. But they'll never suffer, you see, because when they lose, they're going to take off to Switzerland and live off all the money they've been hoarding away the last 10 years. I think they'll never get touched.
I think an 18-year-old owes something to this country, to serve.
We had
By the
some
way, this was also near the time when 18-year-olds, a lot of policies actually changed about 18-year-olds. Like, it used to be you had to be 21 to vote, and then in this time the vote also dropped to 18, and a lot of people kind of criticized that it was, done by the anti-war politicians, and reason being is that young people 18 to 21 did not want to go fight in this war. You know what I mean? So if they were then given the right to vote, then they would be voting against like policies and stuff that have to do with the war. So yeah.
fight for in World War II. And you had nobody that wouldn't volunteer. Very few wouldn't volunteer.
True.
I wouldn't
Recruitment
mind,
numbers
I don't
after
think,
Pearl
serving my
Harbor?
time in the Army
Crazy.
for the country. Because I think the country's given me a lot of things, and it's given me a chance to go to school. I had to work through school, but it gave me a chance to at least go. But I don't know, I think I'd really sort of worry about going over to Vietnam, because I hate to fight somebody else's war.
You
It's
had
not.
World War II, you had Korea.
I mean, that was honestly a very valid point for a lot of people. Why oftentimes you'll see people say that, wars, like, we send our poorest. Right? One of the reasons that may be the case is because of the benefits you can get for joining the military. Say things like with the GI Bill or something, that you can get your education paid for to a part of our population that could never afford to like go to school, college stuff.
You got this. After this, you're going to go to the east.
What? Every 10 years, this country has to have a war. What brings employment? So many people
gotta be
have
a
to
war
die,
every
and it's a
decade.
dirty shame.
It's your politicians, too, that have to take a good portion of this blame. Because I think there's a lot of them that get a certain percentage of these defense contracts and things that go out. And I think there are a lot of politicians that are involved in this, and they get their cut. And this is what's just prolonging everything.
Man, does that sound familiar of what we hear today? President Eisenhower, he brought up the dangers of this, called it the military industrial complex, where basically like our economy would be tied, our economy would be tied with wars, and specifically be beneficial because, again, of the contracts and stuff like that. That the big problem is that if war is going to be profitable for us, that's going to be a problem because we'll just get involved in more wars, right? So trying to strike down. They do make people aware that we don't want to be fighting wars because of the economic benefit that can come from it. And she was bringing in politicians that may be invested in companies or have ties to companies like that again make fortunes off of wars.
How about Michael talks about the black market there, or he talks about generals that have helicopters with chrome runners and stuff like that, and guys that count rifles so they can get promotions.
They count rifles as a dead VC. They count any weapons they captured. They figured they got the weapons, so they might as well consider the VC dead.
Maybe World War II is like that. I don't know. I wasn't there. Okay, I imagine there's a lot of innocent people that got killed in World War II and a lot of inequities, but.
Millions.
God, why? It's so obvious that the wars, so many things in the war are fixed around the dollar. Somebody's making money, okay? And I don't want people making money off of me.
Well, that's true. Money is being made left and right, and that's why I think this war is being prolonged.
To see somebody come back.
You're seeing that. You really started to hear that argument more, it seems like, after World War II. And, the government really spent the government itself went into a massive amount of debts, going back to the, the New Deal, but going into the war to make now, especially since after World War II, the war materials and war resource and all that stuff is largely in the hands of private companies. So that's, again, a very, so now we're like 50 years that this has been going on. Same arguments you hear about the current conflicts.
And you don't know what kind of future he's going to have. You kind of wonder, is it all worth it? And, I'm 20 right now, so my whole age group, is likely to end up there. And I'd just like to see it ended. And I can't give an answer how.
I got hit by a piece of General Motors shrapnel, from an 81 mortar. They dug it out of my leg and it said GM and it had the numbers on it and everything, So, General Motors is making mortars, man. That's what else can I tell you? They're making money. That's what it's all about. They're supposed to be making cars.
So was he insinuating and saying the shrapnel they got hit from was from the enemy? So saying General Motors has been supporting, in a way, both sides of the war. That would probably, you could see that pissing off a soldier, right? I'm waiting to hear more of some arguments though that support the war. I want to hear what those are from people, especially people that were veterans. That's what I'm looking for right now.
They spend so much money on other nations, giving them aid, giving them everything we have.
Common argument
we'd be better off because we could spend our money on poverty. We could clean up the cities.
Why do we have to be the policemen of the world? What about our allies, so-called allies? What are they?
Another argument you hear all the time, right? Why does the U.S. bear the brunt of all this?
Somebody better than us makes the policy, or somebody that should be more in the know makes the policy. But I hope they know what they're doing. If they don't know what they're doing, we're in trouble.
We were brought up to never question authority. Isn't that true? People of our age group. And the government was right, and the policeman was right, and the priest was right, and mom and dad were right, the school board was right. Anybody that was in authority knew what was best and how we should think, and they told us how to think.
But I never told my dad he was crazy.
Shouldn't I let my government know that I think they're crazy? I think they are insane, really. This is an insane thing we're doing tonight.
How we say it.
Well, how should I say it?
In a proper manner. There's a lot of things I don't like, but I don't go throwing bombs in place. I didn't like school when I was going to school. The teacher's sister over in the school slapped my hand one day, but I didn't go out and throw a bomb in the hallway and blow the school all over the intersection. I just went home and told my father, and then he gave me a couple more whacks. If you want to complain.
So a couple points I think are a good time to talk about this. The woman was making a point that she's like, it seems that in the past, maybe when she was growing up, World War II, stuff like that, that people were more likely to believe the things the military says, the government says, who's saying, authorities in general. And in a lot of ways, that's true. And what started to change with that is actually the time period around Vietnam War. A couple things, after World War II, especially, we get a bigger reach of more like newspapers and radio stations. Like news and information could be spread by more sources quicker than ever, right? That then means there's more potential voices that could be in opposition to what authorities say, right? Now, the biggest one was television. This is a time where basically everyone's got a television now in their house, and you could see for the first time, really in American history, updates of the war and visuals from the war, okay, happening. And what that would then lead to is it's like you may hear from government or military publications that the war is going one way, like it's going really well. But then in the evening news, you see all this footage and stuff where it looks like the Americans are getting their butts kicked, right? And then that developed a mistrust with society and the government with it. And again, because of the expansion of media, especially with television, that has been one of the biggest legacies of Vietnam War. And because of that, it makes those wars more difficult. Virtually impossible to win a war, especially if you're a democratic nation, without popular opinion. And this war was one of those ones that kind of proved that.
Because you don't want to go to war, go vote.
What do you mean go vote?
You want.
Why? What's the reason for voting? What's the idea of voting? If you say there's going to be a war every 10 years, what good is your vote going to do if there's going to be a war every 10 years?
The guy was saying, just go vote. That'll fix a problem. That'll fix a problem. So I guess, is that one of the first, like, defenses that I think I've heard in this is, hey, we're a democracy, right? The people that we vote for, that make the decisions, they were voted for. So therefore, it must mean that it's the right thing to do.
1,000 miles to fight for somebody else, somebody that you probably never see again. And I don't blame them if they don't want to go.
So many people get it wrong. You have to understand that there's a definite difference between the country and the government. You see, the people in this country aren't fighting a Vietnam War. The government's fighting it.
Well, the government is the people, supposedly.
That's interesting. I mean, so the soldiers that got drafted, they're not saying they're the government. Interesting point. Let's see what this guy says.
No, but in this instance, it is not.
Anymore, it's not.
No, I agree with you. It is not in this situation.
We read a headline in 1969, taxes go up 13%. Expect 20% raise in 1970, and we all sit back and accept it. It's been printed in advance.
Well, would you agree with me in saying that the only people who benefit, who can gain anything because of our tax laws, are the very wealthy or the very poor who don't have anything, so they don't pay any taxes. And we support the country, right, and yet we have the least to say about it.
All right, final thoughts, and I definitely want to hear back from you all. Okay, so just kind of in my head, kind of categorizing the arguments that I heard. There was obviously, excuse me, there was obviously way more, points made by the people that were against the war, and not many, at least picked out from here, that were supporting it in some aspect. And really, the only two I could think of was there was that woman that was saying that, the people of Vietnam, basically, they're saying like they don't know any better, and they're going to look at it. They're going to support whatever side is more appealing to them, whether it is or not. So it's like you're saving the Vietnamese people like from themselves, pretty much. I heard that argument. And then there was the democracy argument too. Right? Basically, you're saying is, hey, we vote. And obviously, if we vote for people that are going to support the war, that, or vote out people that support the war. But since those people have been voted in right now by the people, the decisions that they make are truly representative of the people, right? Of their voting constituency. But anyways, so with that, I was able to sneak into the stuff I think I wanted to about the effects of the Vietnam War, about how technology and media changed this war, and that kind of thing. But anyways, I'd like to hear from you all. Also, actually, the last thing, wasn't it interesting to see how many arguments the anti-war people were giving that you still hear today in common war or in current wars? I thought that was fascinating to see that. So overall, I'd love to get your opinion on this whole thing, the effects of the Vietnam War and stuff. What have we learned, I guess, from it? And, whatever it is that comes to mind. Definitely put some comments down. All right, this is really cool. If this is the more stuff that you would like to see, I'd love to cover it, but I want to cover what you all want. So if you would like me to keep doing this kind of thing with, you know, historical videos, you know, that kind and even debates like this, let me know. Interesting to look at. All right. And with that, thanks again for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye.